Today we're going to be talking about the Pantry Party. And I just want to make sure that everything's working before I get started. Okay. I'm going to set this to live. Okay. All right. So, hello everybody. I'm happy to be here. And today we're going to have an interesting training. We're going to be talking about having a pantry party. What that really means is that we want to get started on the right step moving forward towards a healthier diet. One which has more plant foods, more whole foods, less processed foods, things that are going to help you to feel better. Before I get started into the presentation, though, I thought I'd share with you a little bit of what it looks like here right now where I am. So hang on just a second and let me share this with you. Okay. So what we see here is what I can see when I look out my front door. We had a real blizzard this last weekend, and we have a ton of drifting, but everything is beautiful, and the sun has come out for the first time since the storm. So it's bright, white, sparkly outside. I just love it. So for those of you that are enjoying your warm temperatures someplace else in the country, I just thought I'd let you know a little bit about what it's looking like for me here. So as we talk about how to prepare for changes, there's a couple of things I think we should keep in mind. One of those is that changes in habits aren't easy. So the proper preparation can help to make those habit changes easier. For example, you need to set yourself up for success. You know, you can set yourself up for failure by simply not planning ahead, not thinking about what you're going to need to be successful in something. So today we're going to talk about one of the steps that you can take to be more successful as you look at eating healthier. One of those things is having a proper pantry. Unless you want to shop before every meal, you need to store some essentials on hand. And that means you probably are going to need to make some space. I don't know if you're like me, but in my kitchen, I don't have a lot of storage space. We've actually downsized with our last move, and I have a limited amount of cupboard space in my kitchen, a whole lot less than I was used to. So I really had to do some reorganization. What you'll want to do as a first step is walk into your kitchen and take a look at what space you have available for storage. As you look around, look and see if there's some unused places, some space maybe where you could organize things a little bit better and make space. And one of the ways to do that is to do a pantry inventory. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So when you go to take an inventory of your pantry, we're looking at the things that you store in your kitchen that are not perishable and that you keep on hand. So start by pulling those things out of the cupboard that you currently have in the cupboard. You might want to clear off a table space or a counter space so that you can do that efficiently. And go through all of the foods in your cupboard. Start by reading labels and look for anything in the list of ingredients that is not part of your goal, where you're wanting to go. For example, if you're trying to eliminate meat from your diet, which I know a few of you are, then you'll want to check your ingredient list for any form of meat that might be in there. Chicken broth, beef broth. Sometimes you might have, powdered chicken, or, there's different kinds. Look through all your ingredients and look for anything that might be meat or a meat byproduct. Then what you're looking for on your ingredients will depend on what your goal is. If your goal is to, for example, clean out all the dairy and go to a non-dairy based healthier diet, then look for ingredients in your labels that reflect dairy or any other animal products. For example, look for powdered eggs, look for milk, look for casein. That's casein. Casein is a milk product. Look for things with whey, whey. Whey is also a milk product. So sometimes these things have different labels and they can get camouflaged, and you might not think about the fact that, oh, this is actually an ingredient that is from milk or eggs or cheese. So read your ingredient list carefully. If there's an ingredient on there that you don't recognize, you can go ahead and put that into the comment box. Even after I have finished this live, you can put questions about what you find in your ingredient list in the comments, and I'll be checking back, and I can help you to decipher what some of those things might be. Some of the really long words might be things like preservatives or flavorings, of which you probably want to minimize, but may not mean that it's something that has to come out of your pantry right now. So anyway, think about, what are my goals? Am I wanting to get rid of meat? Am I wanting to get rid of dairy, milk, eggs, and cheese? Or is that not an issue, and what I really want to do is go to a more whole food, plant-based diet? If you've already gotten rid of meat and dairy products and you're looking to make things healthier, then what I want you to look for in your pantry inventory are refined and processed foods. Things like white sugar, white salt, white flour, white rice, and white pasta. Those are the things that you might want to be taking out of your pantry and making space for some healthier items. So once you have some space in your cupboard, don't put anything back in it that doesn't fit with whatever your goals are, the next step that you're wanting to take in eating healthier. I suggest that you clean that area really well. I know that sometimes dust and grime seems to accumulate in the bottom of my cupboard spaces when I haven't cleaned them out for a while. And while you've got everything pulled off the shelf, is a really good time to wipe and clean everything. Then put back in your food storage space the things that you're going to want to keep. Leave everything else out. There's several things you can do with the things that aren't going back in there. Maybe there are things that you want to eat up before you switch over. Well, if that's what you decide to do, put them in a box or a bin or a tote, something else, some other storage space where you can still access it, but it's not using up the space of the most convenient space that you have in your kitchen, where you're going to want to store the things that you use more frequently. Also, if perhaps you have people in your family that aren't quite on board with you and they're not ready to go whole hog to whatever next step you are choosing to go to, then you might want to put that stuff aside where they can access it if they need it or they want it, but it's not using up valuable space in your kitchen. So if you don't have a very big kitchen, you're like me, you might want to also explore other space options for your pantry storage. A really great space that a lot of people have found works well is under the bed. But maybe you say, there isn't that much space under my bed. Do you know there's some very inexpensive risers, like 6-inch risers that you can get to put under the 4 corners of your bed? And for many types of beds, you can raise your bed an extra 6 inches off the floor. When doing that, that may very well give you the space to put an underbed tote, or maybe even several underbed totes that are kind of the flat, long ones. The ones with wheels are easy to pull in and out from under your bed. And you can keep things like canned goods and flowers and cornmeal and things like that in those totes under your bed. So they don't have to take up a bunch of kitchen space, but you do want them to be not terribly inconvenient to access. Okay, so let's look at what else you might do. Do you have some garage space? A simple metal framing metal frame shelf or shelving unit in one corner of your garage can hold a lot of food. And that's a great place for things that are not perishable, maybe bulk amounts of some items that don't need to be in the refrigerator or frozen can be in your garage. Do you have some closet space in another part of the house that perhaps could be cleaned out and used for storing food? So think about your options. And then you want to prepare. Prepare for the healthy foods that you're going to be putting in your pantry. I find that it's really helpful if I have a good assortment of containers that are fairly uniform in shape and size. They use the space in my cupboards up more efficiently. I really like having something that's clear so you can see through and you can look at a glance and know what's in it. You're much less likely to forget about items that are in your pantry or for things to go bad on you because you forgot they were there. So here are some of the sizes that I like to use. I've looked and looked for different kinds of storage containers for my pantry items, and for the majority of my pantry items, I have found that canning jars are the most economical as well as practical way to store my pantry items. So I have a variety of sizes. You will notice that I have half-gallon sizes. I like using those for flour, oats, whole grain storage, dry bean storage, and even things like my pink salt, soy milk powders, carob powder, things like that. So I'll use the larger jars for those types of things. There's some items that I don't use as much of, and so it will take me longer to go through a jar, so I might just use a quart jar for storing those things. Things like sometimes my dried fruit, nuts, seeds, I'll put in like a 1-quart jar. But I also like the 2-cup mason jars for smaller amounts of things like maybe baking powder or egg replacer, things like that you only use a teaspoon or a tablespoon of at a time, so you don't need a huge amount in your pantry. And I really love the little small 4-ounce containers for little bits of things. They are good for storing seasonings, condiments, some of those things. And I really, really recommend getting wide mouth jars for every size, whether it's the tall, the half-gallon, the 1-quart, the 2-cup, or the half-cup size. I would make them all wide mouth. They're so much easier to clean when they're empty. It makes it so you only have to have one size of lid and ring in stock, so that it's easy to grab out of a drawer if everything's the same size lid. So I have really found this to be economical. I'm going to post links to some good sources for these things. I have found that I can go to places like Walmart or Menards often and buy these jars by the case. Especially in the fall, a lot of these places stock it. Other times of the year, it sometimes is a little bit harder to find. But I'm going to take a minute now and put a link in the comments that you can use to take a look at some sources that I often use, especially if you're rural, you don't go into town a lot, or if it's just handier for you to have something shipped to your home. I have some links from some places you can get these different size jars. So I'm going to put them in the comments right now. So just give me a second while I do that. Okay, so there's the link for the half-gallon jars. And give me a second, I'll put a link in for the quart jars. So hang on. Okay. There you go. There's the one for the quart jars, and I found a nice one for the little tiny half cup jars as well. So give me a second, I'll put those in. There you go. Okay. So those are some easy places where you can get these different sizes. Another thing I wanted to say about storage is that I really prefer to store in glass instead of plastic. Oftentimes, plastic might be initially a little bit cheaper, but I found there's several advantages to having a sturdier glass storage jar. And that is, number one, you don't have to worry about toxins coming out of the plastics into your food. And we know that that's getting to be a bigger and bigger problem in our environment today, and a lot of us are exposed to way more plastic than we need. So when it comes to food storage, I really prefer glass. It doesn't interact with acidic foods, with all the different kinds of dried fruits or other things that you might put into the jar. I also find that these jars work really good as leftover containers on a day-to-day basis to stick in my fridge if I have a little bit of soup left over or a little bit of beans or whatever. So I use them for leftover containers as well as for storage containers. And because you have a lot then that are the same size, it makes it easier to organize your cupboard space. If you would like more tips on organization in the pantry, other kind of handy hacks or whatever for storing different types of things, let me know that in the comments, and I will do a training on that in the future. But I'm glad to see that several of you are on and being able to watch our live today. For those of you that are watching it as a recording later, I hope that this has been helpful to you. If you have questions or comments, please put those in the comment area below. I do also want to let you know about the next training that we're having. I've actually planned a whole series, so I hope that you will be able to take advantage of that, because I want you to be successful as you transition into a healthier diet. And these tips are things that I have found really help people to be successful in that. Forgot to turn the ringer off on my phone. Anyway, our next training is going to be Thursday. We're going to do it at noon Eastern Standard Time. I know that's not a perfect time for everybody, but I'm also having to work it around my work schedule. And for some of you on the West Coast, this is morning time. If you don't have an early morning job, you might be able to watch this. If not, you can always catch this as a recording here in the group later on. So this Thursday training that we're going to do again at noon is what I call the Simple Palate Reset. This is a simple and effective method to help reset your taste buds to appreciate food that is more simple and whole. And it doesn't take long. It's a 1-week plan. We'll talk about exactly how to do that, because our taste buds are actually very plastic. That means they can learn to like new and different flavors pretty quickly. We find, for example, if someone gets put on a salt-free diet, that being on that salt-free diet for a fairly short period of time, it makes it really hard to go back to eating the amounts of salt people were eating before. That's because our taste buds are adjustable. So we're going to talk about how to adjust your taste buds to enjoy the food the way God has made it, natural and whole and simply prepared. So I hope that's been helpful. We hope to see you Thursday at noon on our next live training. Have a great day. And I'll be happy to have you put comments or questions, please, under this post in the group. Thank you, and have a great day.